Qantas had paid $500,000 ransom to guarantee the safety of the 116 passengers.
This was one of the fucking funniest hoaxes, scams I've ever fucking seen. It's back in 1971, and it just goes to show, even back then, the coordination between government, media, and business to fucking pull off absolute bullshit. Oh, it's so amateurish. But, people watching the TV, you just weren't expecting them to tell you a bunch of lies. Like you go to a car dealer, okay, he might be fucking telling me a few porkies, I'll be on my guard. Back then and even now, people just don't think they're going to tell you lies. They just go, oh, well, fuck, I'll just go along with this shit.
After a telephone caller had convinced officials that an altitude bomb had been placed aboard.
An altitude bomb. Oh, this gets so much better. So Mr. Brown, it's not like he's sort of carried the bomb on himself and said, I'm going to commit suicide with all these people if I don't get $500,000. He's not that kind of ransom demanding hostage taker. He's sort of distanced himself from it. And, he's not going to reveal how the bomb got on the plane. Like, he might be a baggage handler himself. Who knows? They didn't know that at the time, I guess. Or he might have snuck it into someone's luggage while someone distracted them and he snuck it on. But anyway, he's not up there himself, and he's demanding $500,000.
We maintained 35,000 feet on it, and we did not know what altitude it was set to go off at.
Well, things are moving fast while this thing's up in the air. So he's told them there's a locker, so they've raced there. They've got this jelly knot. That would take time to take the jelly knot off, and then they've got to, rig up a light bulb to it. Got to get a soldering iron and all that. They need a spare Boeing 707, just, sitting around. Maybe they cancelled a flight, said, okay, everyone off. It's an emergency. Yep, okay, fair enough. So they've jumped on, but they only went to 8,500 feet. He said they're at 35,000 feet. They didn't know how high it was, what it was set to go off at. Why did they only go to 8,500 feet? Okay, he's made a fully functioning bomb that would have gone off had they descended below 5,000 feet. And because the light bulb blew up. Now, the authorities have confirmed that. And so they're in on this now. It's not like they said, it didn't really work, but, we weren't sure. They said, this bomb works. Now, they've attached themselves to this thing working. Well, that opens them up to one big, gaping fucking hole.
Did you tell the passengers at any stage that there was a bomb on board?
We told them we were looking for an object, and we searched the aircraft thoroughly, including the passenger's baggage. I didn't mention the word bomb at all.
Okay, so they've got confirmation that this actual altitude bomb works, and it's on the plane, and he's gone looking for it, trying not to alarm passengers. He's the flight captain. He knows aircraft inside out. So just remember that. He already knows the aircraft inside out. Now, technically, we know it's not a radar altimeter. That's not how this, to smuggle something on, you have to connect it up to the plane systems. And so we know it's not that. In fact, we've got a picture of the actual bomb itself, which for some reason, in amongst all the panic and trying to rush this thing through and sort, the hostage situation out, they managed to take a photo of it. But I'm glad they did. So here it is close up, and you can see the switch there. And as it goes up in altitude, that needle swings around and then triggers the switch. So you might say, hang on, wouldn't a bomb go off after, as soon as it hit that switch? Okay, well, let's assume they've got it, sort of a one-way. So it'll flick past on the way up, but only trigger the switch on the way down. So that's obviously, how this thing was designed to work, because, they've tested it and they've believed that it worked and it showed that it worked. So it's not a radar altimeter. It's just one of these oldest type conventional altimeters. And it says here that the atmospheric pressure at the airplane's flight altitude, and comparing to a preset pressure value, air pressure decreases by about 1 inch of mercury for each 1,000 foot of altitude increase. So it works off air pressure. And it says inside the instrument, the casing is to 3 aneroid wafers that are sealed but still able to expand and contract. These aneroid wafers are calibrated at sea level. So it tells you, unlike a radar one, which tells you how high you are off the ground, this will tell you how high you are from sea level. And here's some information on the 707. The 707 uses engine-driven turbo compressors to supply compressed air for cabin pressurization. It can't work. The altitude bomb inside the cabin, it relies on the pressure outside. Measuring that. That's how they work. That's why the sensors are on the outside. They're not inside the cabin. So the altitude bomb could never have worked. So let it sink in. Some aircraft captain who knows all about the planes is running around the cabin looking for an altitude bomb. What a fucking liar. So the only place it could work was if it was in the wheel bay. But of course, they couldn't get to it to defuse it if it was in the wheel bay or somewhere like that. They can only get to the pressurized parts of the plane. That's the cabin and also the cargo hold. They can't get to anywhere else to defuse it. And who was going to defuse it? I mean, it can't work anyway. But just say they had some kind of bomb up there. What was their plan? Was he going to talk them through it? Tell them how it worked? Oh, and remember, they took this thing up and they tested it. That's the official line. And this thing actually, it worked when it couldn't have worked. So they're all lying. The scope of this lie is just so audacious. It's unbelievable. Now, this is how much fun they were having with the public. They were laughing their fucking heads off. What they did was, so we know it's all made up, right? There's a huge backstory to all this, and they made up this mannequin lookalike to show on the news. This is the guy we're after. But listen, not only okay, just so you didn't figure out the altimeter stuff. Even this part of the story tells you that it's absolute fucking bullshit.
Hoaxer, Mr. Brown, collected the $500,000 from the general manager of Qantas, Captain Ritchie, and drove off in this stolen hire van.
So Mr. Ritchie, the boss of Qantas, goes out there to meet this guy, and according to them, he's prepared to kill 128 people. He might have had guns on him, but that's all right. We'll send the boss of Qantas out there outside of Chifley Tower, outside of Qantas. So out he goes. Now, supposedly, Qantas, later on, it came out that they didn't tell the police. This is what they reckon. That's why there weren't police here, because really, if once they got this guy, they could just hold him and say, okay, if you tell us where it is, if you don't, 128 people are going to die, and you're going to go to jail for that crime. Now, he's got nothing to, he hasn't got the cash. All he's got his jail sentence, either a long one or a short one. Oh, what's he going to do? So that's how they get around. They say that Qantas didn't tell the cops. I mean, what an absolute load of fucking bullshit. Now, the Australian Women's Weekly, back in 16th of June 1971, they're sprung into action to try and solve the case. And here got that mannequin. But a full colour photo now. They wanted all their women readers to see if they can remember seeing him. And in this article here, if you read down the right-hand side, it said that the car was abandoned in the city. Another article says that he abandoned it in Bathurst Street. So he didn't race up in the suburbs or anything. Just in the Hertz van, got out. So he's now running around the city with these two cases. Somehow the cops couldn't catch him. But there's another article about that. So this is an article from the Canberra Times. It's a bit later on when they're doing all these inquiries. And if you read this, the Qantas didn't tell the cops that they were going to pay the ransom. The cops were in on it, going up, testing it and all that. And then Qantas, now bear in mind that the plane's only got a limited amount of fuel, so they had to act quickly anyway. So cops knew something had to be done fast, but they didn't, what are you going to do? Any consultation? The Qantas secretly went and paid the $500,000, so the cops are off the hook. So the next question to be asked is, where did the $500,000 in cold hard cash come from? Well, without letting the cops know. Remember, the Qantas were keeping this all suddenly stuff from the cops, as if they'd ever take on that kind of responsibility. Anyway, that's what they said they did. But where did they get this cash from? This smarmy little, I think he's a Qantas public relations officer. Explain that.
How was Qantas able to get $500,000 so quickly?
Well, it's a very effective banking service in this country. You just sign a cheque and you go to your bank and they give you $500,000. It was a very impressive service from our friends in the Reserve Bank.
Oh, look, this guy can hardly contain his stooping delight. He just loves telling these, and there's a bit more clips of him telling absolute pork pies. He loves it. He laughs, even almost starts to burst out laughing as he's talking about some of it. Now, okay, so they haven't told the cops, and they need $500,000 in cash. 1971, right? $10, $20 notes. I don't think they had 50s in those days. It's just going to be one heck of a wad of cash. So he's saying they went to so they've gone, so they must have, an account with $500,000 in it. They're not borrowing the money. So Qantas has got that in cash reserves and say an account with whoever they're banking with. They were government owned, but they would hold an account with probably the Commonwealth Bank. So he's saying that they've wandered over to the Reserve Bank, and the Reserve Bank has got $500,000 in notes just there at whatever 5 p.m. whatever day it was, and no questions asked. They've handed over this check. Obviously, they've checked with the Commonwealth Bank and it's Qantas, and they're going, okay, then no questions asked about like $500,000 in banknotes. That's going to drain us. In fact, the Reserve Bank doesn't hold any banknotes. I'm pretty sure they don't. They don't even hold gold. So I don't think that all they're there is for as an instrument for transactions. They will hold deposits for the banks, but not for Qantas or anything. So Qantas didn't have an account with them. So they're cashing a check. They're going, yeah, no worries. Or, mind you, without telling anybody else, not the police. I don't think Austrac was around then, but nothing to see here. Here you go.
And diverted towards Brisbane, we were met by an RAAF Phantom jet fighter, which escorted us.
So this is how sort of big it was on the day and all that it was happening. They had all these people involved telling lies, and we know it's a lie from the fact that it's an altimeter bomb that couldn't possibly work. They're running around a cabin, pressurized cabin, looking for something that can't possibly. Anyway, we know that it's fake. And this guy, Selwyn, he's telling an absolute pork pies, and I'll just show a few more clips of the people. Listen to the accents of the liars as well.
And we searched the aircraft thoroughly, including the passengers' baggage. I didn't mention the word bomb at all.
Maybe about half an hour before reaching Sydney, they told us that they were looking for a box and that we were not allowed to land before this box was found.
And did you think that was a bomb?
Well, of course, what do you want?
How do you feel about the fact that Qantas paid $500,000 for your safe return?
Well, we're absolutely staggered by this. We didn't know until just a few minutes ago. And it's really a wonderful thing, we feel. We feel that this should never have happened, of course.
The feeling amongst the passengers on the plane?
The feeling was one of very, very much calmness. Everybody was extremely good, although the nervousness, I think, showed, and the crew was extremely calm and engendered calmness in everybody else.
Well, of course, they'd be calm, especially the captain. He knows an altitude bomb isn't going to work, even though he's running around pretending to look for it. So what was this actually all about, given that Qantas, the government, the Reserve Bank, the cops have staged the whole thing? I think it's, and they said in one of the articles that the Prime Minister, McMahon, at the time was being, kept apprised of everything, except that they were going to pay. Qantas kept that to themselves, the transfer of the actual cash. And I think that's what this had a twofold intended. Twofold was to transfer money to, someone who wanted it, that someone in government or in influence, it was $500,000, a bit like that $444 million that was supposed to go to the Great Barrier Reef Foundation that went to Goldman Sachs executives. I think that's a similar thing here, but there was twofold though. I think this was around the time they were starting to build up this, terror hijackings and bombs on planes. And I think it was a fear factor as well, obviously, because this sort of stuff was the precursor, to what we see today, which is all these other phony fake shows. Now, I'll put a link to the video, but that I've got this story from, but they go on to say that two guys ended up getting arrested and they went through court and all this sort of stuff. And, they served a 15-year sentence, and one guy got let off, that guy on the left, Peter Macari, then went back to England early and was starting up a fish and chip shop. And the guy on the right, they don't talk much about him. But apparently these two guys, they put them up as having done it. Now, they probably had their backstory ready to go anyway, but it probably became imperative to use it because I think even back then, so many questions would be asked, so they needed to try and prove that it was real. So yeah, here's a story a bit later on. They even get their names mixed up. So these two guys as suspects. It's all sort of packaged up now. But I think that they did say they recovered some of the money. You can research that. But still, like $200,000 has gone missing. No one knows where it was. But I think it was a heist of money. And any money recovered, they could generate later on. They was found later on down the track, so they could get that from elsewhere. But I think the $500,000 got to its recipient. And also, once again, I just reiterate that this is all about fear, terror, bullshit. But this is an early stage of it. So, all right, that's it for this one.